I gave my life to Jesus when I was almost 16 years old. I was persuaded to go along to youth fellowship at my local church, actually pestered by one of my friends to go along to youth fellowship. And when I went along, I found it was actually really quite good fun. There was a really good youth fellowship leader, and the minister and his wife were really supportive. They opened up their home to us and we had great fun. But one of the things they did was they took us along to gospel rallies in Kilmarnock, and there were big meetings of lots of teenagers. And I remember one night really hearing the gospel for the first time properly. And the preacher, the young girl, was saying, you know, you've got to get on the train going the right way. It's either your way or God's way. What are you waiting for? Get on the train. And that's what sticks in my mind. So that night, I gave my life to Jesus. I went forward. I prayed for forgiveness and I asked Jesus into my life. And I was actually more concerned that night that my boyfriend hadn't waited behind for me, and that I was really worried that my parents were going to be very angry with me for being late 2 weeks in a row. However, we survived that, and I went along to youth fellowship and I grew in my faith, learnt lots about Jesus, learnt about God, attended church. My parents wondered what had happened to me, and I remember my gran saying, don't worry, she'll grow out of it just like she's grown out of everything else. But I didn't. And I learnt that prayer was really important. And when I was trying to work out what I wanted to do with my life, and I was making my university choices, I had always loved languages, and I had thought about teaching French and other languages too. But God stepped in because he made me think about being an RE teacher, and my Bible reading notes really confirmed this. This is what they said. I've kept it because it was so important to me. It says, you know, said the minister, you could become a teacher of religious education in a secondary school if you wanted. You don't need to have a degree or pass in another school subject. There are vacancies all over Scotland for RE teachers, and even principal teacher posts are unfilled. The student spoke slowly. I'll have to think about this. I hope school leavers planning their university courses know about it. The minister was impressed. What would you say to them? I'd say this. Take a theology degree or an arts degree with religious studies in it. If you're a Christian, be an RE teacher. That would stir them up. Well, it stirred me up, and that has really confirmed that I was to go off and to be an RE teacher. And that really upheld me in times when, in the first year of teaching, particularly when life was really, really tough, that's what God wanted me to do with my life. And I loved it. I loved teaching RE. And another time when I was young as well, when I felt that prayer was really answered and that God was really close, was when I was off in France for a summer. I had to go to France because I had to go to France as part of my training as well, because I was also going to be a French teacher. And I went with Operation Mobilisation, which is an organisation that sells Christian literature to spread the gospel. So I drove a minibus full of teenagers from Belgium down to the south of France to Marseille, you know, white slave trade capital of Europe and all that. And I hadn't realised, I don't think any of us had, that part of the deal was you had to sell the literature, because if you didn't sell the literature, you really didn't eat very much. So we were sitting one morning in prayer, and we were praying for money, for food, and the post arrived, and lo and behold, in the post was a letter from my grandmother, and it said, in answer to a maiden's prayer, and she'd added a postal order for some money. And the money, it said, was to put some jam in your bread. Well, little did she know that it was actually also the bread that was going to be under the jam that it bought that day. But that was a real answer to prayer. And I found that God's timing is impeccable. Sometimes we want answers here and now. They don't always come. I've had real ups and downs in my life. There's been times when I felt very close to God and that he has felt very close to me. But there's been desert times too, you know, when your faith feels dry as dust. And in the dark times, sometimes when you feel that God is very far. But he's not. He's there. You might have moved away from God, but he hasn't. He is there. He is with you, and he loves you very dearly. And I have really experienced that. So how did I end up in Brightons? Because we've only been here in Falkirk for a short while. Well, before we moved, I had been visiting along with my family a few churches to find somewhere that we wanted to settle down. I hadn't really found anything. And then I came along to the pre-5s with my grandchildren, and Rachel Gilmer sat down beside me and chatted away to me and told me about some of the things that were happening in the church. And I found it really exciting, and I couldn't wait to come along to the church to find out about it. But because of my situation at the time, it was a while before we got to come. But at the same time, or just very shortly after, I had been writing to friends to tell them that we were moving and my new address. And one of my friends wrote back to say, we've got friends who are in Brighton's church, which is nearby. You'll get to know some people who were also in our church, the church that I had been in as a teenager. Wow. So we came along to Brighton's and love it. We love being part of the Brightons family. And life has been a bit like an adventure. It's God's adventure. God is very much central to life. And I look forward to the exciting times ahead. And I know that God will be with me